feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong, in my happy place. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong, in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong, in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong, in my happy place.
Welcome to the National University of Singapore Yong Lin School of Medicine Healthy Longevity webinar. Thank you for joining us. Professor Pol Grootswagers is our guest today. We will talk about a special topic about plant-based protein diets, highly debated. This will, I think, trigger lots of questions, so use, please, the Q&A function to send us the question, the remarks, and everything you would like to ask. Tonight, we have Jianhua Tai, our PhD student at the NUS Center for Health Longevity, with us, and he will present on a study he did together with colleagues here at NUS and NUHS, and that's a Singapore perioperative aging study, SINCPATH, the impact of surgery on DNA methylation.
Hello everyone, as mentioned, my name is Jianhua, a PhD student in the Center for Healthy Longevity. Today I will be discussing the impact of major surgery on DNA methylation in Singapore perioperative aging study, which also known as SINCPATH. Major surgery triggers an immediate high-stress inflammatory and immune response. This response controls various physiological pathways and associates to an increase in DNA methylation age, as shown in previous study. During the post-operative day 4 to day 7, there is a partial reversal of DNA M age. It is hypothesized that epigenetic processes play a crucial role in regulating transcriptional activities relating to immune cells and wound healing processes, highlighting the importance of epigenetic regulations in post-operative recovery. Despite these insights, there is a notable gap in the literature to date. No studies have studied the DNA M ages of patients undergoing major surgery beyond the initial post-operative week. Furthermore, there is no study conducted in the Asian populations. To address these gaps, the SINCPATH study was conducted. We prospectively recruited 122 elective major non-cardiac surgical patients, all aged 65 years and above. Additional applied inclusion and exclusion criteria are detailed on the slide. DNA methylation were measured from the peripheral blood mononuclear cells collected at 4 key time points: immediately before surgery, referred as POD0, post-operative day 1, referred as POD1, day 30 POD30, and day 90 POD90. DNA M ages of 11 clots were measured as well. On this slide, we present the demographics of the patients recruited in our study. The median age of participants was 71.5 years. 45.9% of the participants were female. 77% of the participants were Chinese. Next, we present the results of the DNA methylation age deviation analysis for the second and third generation clocks. Age deviation refers to the differences between epigenetic age and chronological age. These studies demonstrate that Second generation and third generation clocks show statistically significant higher DNA methylation ages at POD1, suggesting that the acute stress response to surgery could increase DNA methylation ages. At POD30 and POD90, the DNA M ages were statistically significantly lower at POD1 in the second generation clocks, suggesting a degree of recovery and adaptation over time. Whereas the in-causal and in-damage do not show statistically significant higher DNA M ages at POD1, but instead show statistically significant lower DNA M ages at POD30 and 90 compared to POD1. In adapt age, in the middle of the graph, shows statistically significant higher DNA M ages in POD 30 and 90 compared to both baseline and POD1. In conclusion, this study identified transient changes in DNA M ages during major surgery in Asian populations, consistent with previous study conducted in the Caucasian populations. Randomized controlled trial or Mendelian randomization are needed to evaluate the causal effects of surgical stress on DNA M ages. This is the end of my presentation, and I would like to thank Professor Andrea, Prof. T, Dr. Raj Kumar, and Dr. Wang for their guidance and support. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jianhua, for this enlightening talk to see how methylation is really influenced by surgery. Our topic today is about a plant-based meal. Professor Pol Grootswagers is assistant professor in nutrition and aging at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and he coordinates research projects on plant-based proteins and aging, and a European consortium that develops tools to assess the protein quality of plant-based meals. He has developed a novel protein quality scoring algorithm, the Meal Protein Quality Score, and a web tool that calculates the quality of plant-rich meals, the Alpha tool. Paul, it's our pleasure to have you here. I think hopefully you will answer lots of questions of the audience, really talking about should we eat plant-based or not, and how do we enrich our food with proteins to get our muscles fit. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for the nice introduction and the invite to be on this very special webinar series, which I really like. It's so great to be here myself, and looking forward to all the questions on this topic. I can imagine there are plenty. So today I will indeed talk about healthy aging on plant-based diets. Question mark, is it possible? Plant-based diets are hot and happening. We see more and more hospitals offering plant-based meals to their inpatients. So their vulnerable populations, their older patients are receiving meals that are fully or largely plant-based. Well known is that in New York, almost all hospitals serve the majority of their meals fully plant-based. And what we see in the Netherlands, the country where I live, is that the official nutritional recommendations already advise to shift to more plant-based protein for the whole population, including the older share of the population. So right now in the Netherlands, people tend to eat 60% of their proteins from animal sources via a step of going to 50-50, so half of your protein from animal sources. They ultimately want to go to only 40% of your protein from animal sources. So a clear transition to more plant-based proteins. And eating a more plant-based diet comes with certain benefits. So well known is the lower greenhouse gas emission. I'll show a little bit of data later. But also because of the more fiber in the diet, the less amounts of saturated fatty acids, higher amounts of certain beneficial compounds in a plant-based diet can lead to lower risks of type 2 diabetes, a low risk of cardiovascular disease, and maybe even mortality. I'll show a bit more about that later. So first, about the greenhouse gas emissions. So here on this bar on the left, the vertical bar, you see all the global CO2 emissions. And you see that the share of those coming from food is actually quite large. It's around 1/4 of the total global share of CO2 emission. So clearly we can achieve something with changing our food system there. If we look at land use, so the amount of land that is needed to grow 100 grams of proteins from various sources, we see that especially the red meats, lamb, mutton, beef, they need a lot of land to get 100 grams of protein. If you compare that to other protein sources, and then you see a certain pattern where you have dairy sources also still requiring quite a bit of land. And if you go down, it's becoming more and more plant-based, although there are still some things like fish and also eggs and poultry meat that don't require so much land use. So what would that mean? Currently, we use for the global diet, so the top horizontal bar, we use an amount of land that is equal to the size of the whole of North America plus Brazil. So quite a large share of the land on Earth is used for growing foods. If you would shift to a vegan diet, so the lowest bar, you see that you can really bring it down. It would reduce the amount of land by 75%. Interesting from this figure is that you see if you don't eat fully vegan, but you would exclude red meat, dairy, and poultry, you only add a little bit of land. So you don't have to go all the way extreme to vegan. You can have certain intermediates, especially if you exclude those sources that I mentioned before, beef, mutton, dairy. You already do we would do already a very good job, and we don't have to go all the way extreme to no animal food at all. So that's for more the impact on the environment, but we also have benefits for health. So here in a paper published this year by the group of Walter Willett, they looked at different aspects of the Planetary Health Diet Index and the risk of total mortality in 3 large prospective cohorts. So here you see different food groups. If they contain a star, like with dairy, like with red processed meat, it means the less, the better. So if then your estimate is on the left with the confidence interval not meeting the 1, you know that less processed meat relates to a significant reduced risk of dying, basically. So for stars, it's the less the better. For no stars, it's the more the better. So especially whole grains, nuts, and added unsaturated fats, they are very good. And so I think with the fats, I wonder why there's no star here, but I would be surprised if that leads to lower mortality. But let's focus on the nuts, the whole grains, and see that it can lead to a lower chance of dying by including those more in your diet at the cost of red processed meats and dairy. So both beneficial for mortality, both beneficial for the planet. Always, if we have benefits on one side, we of course have risk on the other side. So there are some risks that we are seeing when we eat more plant-based diets. First, there's a lower amount of protein in plant sources, and the proteins that are in it are of lower quality. And I'll explain more about what this quality really means later on. Because there are certain nutrients not naturally coming from these plant foods, such as vitamin B12 and omega-3 fatty acids, we are a little bit worried about the impact on cognition. So for cognition, these are important nutrients, especially omega-3. Omega-3 is also really hard to get from a vegan diet, whereas vitamin B12 is basically added to a lot of dairy and meat replacers. We will also zoom in on bone mineral density and muscle health. So let's first look at bone mineral density. And this is a quite famous study done in the EPIC cohort, where they split the groups of 55,000 people into meat eaters, fish eaters, vegetarians, and vegans. They followed them up for, I think, 17 years, and they looked at how many fractures occurred in which group and what the hazard ratio was compared to the meat eaters. So you see that for the vegans, the estimate is quite far on the right. It's significant, and they have a 43% higher chance of fractures. So basically what they saw in this study was more fractures in the vegan population compared to the meat-eating population. We also looked at the association between protein intake from different sources and bone mineral density in a collection of different cohorts that we have in Wageningen with older people. We split it out on total protein, plant protein, and animal protein, and you see a clear pattern in all genders that plant protein, you find the estimate on the left, so related to a lower bone mineral density, whereas total protein and animal protein both relate to higher protein density. So there seems to be something going on with these protein sources and your bone health. A last slide looks a bit complex, but I'll talk you through. So first we focus on the left side, where we have a meta-analysis looking at the fracture risk again. Here you have all cohorts of vegans and vegetarians. You see that it's a significant, for the pooled effect, a significant higher risk of fractures in all those plant-based following people. Then split it out on the vegetarian subgroup and a vegan subgroup. You see that the vegetarian subgroup, it's still on the right, but it crosses the 0, so it's not significant anymore, or the 1, I should say. The vegan diet, that's where you find the significance. So really in the vegan diet, you see this pronounced increased risk of getting a fracture in different studies. On the right-hand side, we see the same thing, but then for bone mineral density. So the bone mineral density, you want to keep it high to prevent osteoporosis, to prevent fractures. It's typically getting lower once we get older. So that's what we try to achieve, to keep that high. Again, the pooled effect of all these vegan subgroups, vegan and vegetarian subgroups, is on the left, related to a lower bone mineral density. And here you see for vegetarians, it's also significantly related to a lower bone mineral density. But for vegans, it's again more pronounced, and you see some quite dramatic estimates with quite a large effect to the left of a lower bone mineral density. Now I'm going to focus on muscle. That's actually what I focused most on in my own research. So before we saw that hospitals are actually more and more catering plant-based meals to their patients. What we know is that older patients in the hospital, they lose a lot of lean mass. We know that only from the legs, they already lose 600 grams every week. So that's combined lean mass, it's bone mass, but also muscle mass. That mainly is coming from a lower protein synthesis. And protein synthesis is what we can increase by exercise and by giving or eating protein and energy. Exercise is, of course, difficult in a hospital, although we are nowadays doing more and more what we can do with exercise. But protein and energy is something we have more control over. And that's very important to prevent such large losses in lean mass. Because it's important to maintain muscle mass when we age. It's really important for our independent living, for the daily chores we can still do ourselves, so that we are independent of devices or other people. And what we usually say is you require a high quality protein intake during the day. The division over the day doesn't really matter, but a good strategy could be 3 meals of 0.3 gram per kilogram per day, trying to achieve at least 1 gram per kilogram per day of total protein intake over the whole day. So we are just wrapping up a very large project that we carried out over the last 4 years, where we try to ask the question, how can older adults safely transit to plant-based proteins? We started off with a literature review, so that was a perspective where we asked the question, can older adults eat vegan diets? And we really focused on the impact on muscle health. We then tested 1 meal, so a very short-term study, so the immediate response to a vegan meal versus a traditional omnivorous meal in a crossover fashion in older people. And we measured the muscle protein synthesis with stable isotopes. We observed that within the participants, compared to themselves, crossover fashion, after the traditional meal with meat, they had a 47% higher muscle protein synthesis rate. So really the buildup of your muscle reacted much better to the traditional meal compared to the vegan meal, even though they were equal in protein and amino acids. Then we went on to do a 10-day trial, again in a crossover fashion, highly controlled. We gave older people vegan diets, really for 10 days. We controlled everything they ate. And we also gave them an omnivorous diet in another 10 days to see the difference. But here we did not find a difference. So with deuterium water, we can measure muscle protein synthesis over a longer time period, so over 10 days. We did that and we didn't find any difference. So that's very interesting. We think it has to do with the type of older people we got into this study because they were extremely active. They had an average step count of 13,000 steps per day. So that's much more active than the average older adult, of course. And because we controlled their diet, there was quite a bit of protein in both groups. So also in the vegan situation, we saw that in order to control these macronutrients, we had to create very oddly looking dishes, like imagine a plate full of chickpeas with little sauce and little other nutrients, because we needed to get those protein there. So we had a little room for fats and for carbs. So we already saw like this is probably not what people will do really in practice if they move to a vegan diet. But still very interesting finding, and it shows that maybe if you remain very active and you eat still a lot of protein, you could as well eat vegan without risking muscle loss. Right now we are finishing up the VOLT trial, and this is really the proof of the pudding. Here we include 72 older people who are not vegan or vegetarian yet. Then we ask them to, we really force them to eat a vegan diet. Two groups eat a vegan diet. One of those groups also receives twice per week resistance training. And the third group, they remain on their omnivorous diet. So that's the control group. So here we will measure, again, muscle protein synthesis, but also we have MRI scans of the full quadriceps volume, where we can see, we can really detect small changes there. We also do DEXA scans, so a good measure of bone mineral density. And interestingly, here we don't control the diet. So we inform the participants that they have to move to a vegan diet. We give them all the information. They can take away some products, some vegan products from the university. It can be either meat replacers or stuff like beans. And we can also really see what will people do when they make this switch and what will happen to their protein quantity and their protein quality. And then we can relate those changes also to changes in body composition. So those results are expected somewhere next year, I guess. So we are now, we just finished recruitment. So the last group is now starting this 3-month intervention. So somewhere this year we will finish and then do the very exciting analysis in that study. If we look at protein quantity, we know that in older people, it is already before this protein transition an issue. So here is a summary of different studies who looked in older adults and presented data on their share of plant and animal proteins. You see that many of these bars do not reach the 1.0 grams per kilogram body weight per day. And you also see that the largest share of every bar is blue, meaning that it stemmed from animal sources. So really animal-based protein before this protein transition determine a lot of the total protein intake of older adults as of now. And if we're gonna instruct older people also to lower that animal share, we have to be careful that we don't push all these bars to the left. So we have to make really good replacements with plant proteins. Also in hospital settings, it's we see, this is all data from the Netherlands, that is quite low right now. So in this hospital, we see that the provided protein still meets the 1 gram per kilogram per day, even though in a hospital setting, you probably want to be in this gray striped area. But then we also look at what they really eat, and then you see that's considerably lower, with only 0.7 grams per kilogram per day, meaning that a lot of protein is actually going to be returned to the kitchen and is not consumed at all. You also observe a large spread with some people who are really low in their protein intake. Synthesized data of a lot of hospital patients throughout the Netherlands show that around half of them, so 44 to 53%, do not reach their protein goal. So really, a lot of them do not reach their protein goal. This is a hospital nearby Wageningen. They work closely together with us, and they're very on top of their nutrition. So they reach better numbers, but still 24% does not reach their protein target. So it is already hard to reach your protein target, especially in a hospital setting, and this is before the protein transition. Here we show what will happen if people move to a more plant-based diet. We modeled based on the Dutch National Food Consumption Survey. So this is an original intake from a very recent survey across the Netherlands with more than 600 older adults here represented. You see that they have a protein intake of over 0.9 grams per kilogram per day. And this is their original diet. And what we did from that original diet, we made them flexitarians, pescatarians, vegetarians, vegans by ourselves. So just manually, we swapped their cheese for vegan cheese and their meat for meat replacers, stuff like that. Of course, we had a large number of different replacement products, which we would randomly choose from every time we made a replacement. And then we can clearly see what happens to their daily protein intake if they would move to more plant-based diets. Well, two things that are really striking. One thing is immediately clear: in a vegan diet, it shifts quite far to the left. So we have we might come into problems with protein quantity on a vegan diet. Another thing that is really interesting is that all the other plant-based scenarios are actually not so impactful. So it's only a small change to the left for many of these plant-rich diets. So they're not fully plant-based, but still, if you go fully vegetarian, you still get quite a little bit of protein in there, and not so much less than the original diet. It's really the jump to vegan that makes this dramatic impact. But that's protein quantity. But importantly, we have to focus on protein quality. Protein quality is determined by only two things: the amino acid composition in a protein and the digestibility of protein. So digestibility is really what do you, from all the protein you eat, what do you really absorb? The amino acid composition is looking at the essential amino acids in a protein, and you want them to be reflective of your body proteins. So you can see these essential amino acids as puzzle pieces. To build protein in your own body, you need a certain amount of every essential amino acid, every puzzle piece, and ideally it's reflective of your own body. So if you eat meat, you are eating the muscle of an animal, which looks almost exactly like the muscle of ourselves. So you have all the building blocks there. Therefore it's of very high quality. It's a good amino acid profile. If we eat plants, they don't look so much like ourselves, so they usually are a little bit unbalanced, we would say, if you compare it to our own body proteins. In terms of essential amino acids, they still contain normally all the essential amino acids, so it's not that they fully lack one, it's just that their balance is skewed. And a high quality protein should be well digestible. Also, we see that in animal protein in general, the protein is very well digestible, almost always more than 90%. In plant, in general, it's lower, but there's a lot of variation. So you have, for instance, the protein from rye bread. That's the lowest I've ever seen. It's 25% digestible, so really poorly digestible. The protein from soy and all the isolates is very well digestible, so still much more than 90%. So it's not always lower in plant. It's just the spread is much broader. So what can we do to compensate for this lower quality? One thing that's often said is eat more. That's also in our recommendations. So the official Dutch recommendations say if you go on a vegan diet, just do your protein targets times 1.3 and eat that amount of protein to compensate for the lower quality. It works, but it's in practice, of course, very difficult, especially for older people who are already with meeting their protein targets, who struggle with some appetite. And it's also, I think, a little bit conflicting with the sustainability goals. So why would you still eat more protein to compensate for lower quality? A more elegant solution, in my eyes, is to combine complementary protein sources. I will explain how that works. Usually, of all the 9 essential amino acids, only lysine and methionine are really problematic. So if you look at plant-based meals, it's usually one of these two that is limiting. The others are usually quite okay. So we can, to make it simple, just focus on these two essential amino acids. What you see is the lightly shaded box. There is the amount of the essential amino acids you want to be in a protein source. So for the animal-based protein, you see that they are really out achieving that box. So there's a lot of these essential amino acids in a portion, and we also see that the pie chart, which depicts the digestibility, is almost full, and so more than 90% digestible. Therefore, I colored it green. If we look, for instance, at potato, we see it does meet the essential amino acids. So the protein amino acid pattern is quite okay there. However, it's very poorly digestible, only like 55%. So it's not really good. And also in potato, there's only 3% of protein. So also that's an issue. The reason that it's low digestible is because first proteins are encapsulated in certain cell structures, and so that's a problem. Or they are surrounded by starch, which is hard to get through, and your enzymes will never really reach the protein. It's one thing. The other thing is that they contain anti-nutrients, so that are compounds that bind to the amino acids and making them not digestible. So there are a lot of anti-nutrients in potato. Another thing that's very interesting is if we look at rice and pea. So rice, you see, overachieves in methionine, underachieves in lysine. And for pea and other legumes, it's the other way around. High in lysine, low in methionine. So you immediately see if you combine these two, you can make up for their unbalanced amino acid pattern and together get a better protein source. That's exactly what we mean with protein complementing. So here I oversimplify as much as I can, but just to make it clear. So in rice, again, you have a lot of methionine, low in lysine. So you can say like, okay, it only delivers half of those puzzle pieces we need to have to build our own muscle tissue. For peas or beans, it's the other way around. So they deliver the other half of your puzzle pieces. Together, you have all the puzzle pieces, you can build muscle. Great. If you eat meat, everything is already there. Again, it's the muscle of an animal. So yes, obviously all the puzzle pieces will be there. So what would happen if we only eat rice and we do not complement with the beans? Then we only have half the puzzle. The body misses out on amino acids. It cannot say like, hey, today we're going to build muscle tissue without lysine. It doesn't work like that. It really needs all the building blocks. And there is no storage for protein in your body. So unlike for certain vitamins that you store in your liver or for fats or for glycogen, those storage does not exist for amino acids. So that you cannot save methionine for later and compensate when you eat the beans later. You really basically can only use them as an energy source. So you will oxidize these amino acids, use it as energy, or you will store it as fat. So if you are a hospital patient, you already get little protein in, and the protein then is also of lower quality, which results in the amino acids being burned for energy instead of used for maintaining that muscle mass, which is so crucial. Then we're really doing it wrong. So this is very important to remember. Again, it's an oversimplified version, what I present here. Importantly, your body doesn't have a storage for amino acids, but we do have quite a bit of amino acids running through our blood from previous meals. So we can capture one of those low quality meals and complement it with amino acids that is circulating around in our blood. But if you have repeated meals low in lysine, which is really the case, what we see in modeling studies with vegan diets, then it will become an issue, and you will, in the end, use those proteins for an energy source instead of building those important structures in your body, such as muscle, bone, but also immune cells and every other thing you need proteins for. A study that's from the lab of Stu Phillips and was published recently, I think 2 months ago, for me clearly depicts what I just explained. So I'll talk you through what they did in this study. They included older adults. They had a run-in period where everyone was on a 0.8 grams per kilogram protein diet. Then they randomized them in 3 groups to receive either collagen protein, whey protein, or pea protein twice a day, 50 grams in total, during breakfast, during lunch, on top of those 0.8 grams per kilogram per day. And then they looked at the response of after that supplement phase of which lasted a week in muscle protein synthesis. So you see what happens here, the gray bar, the collagen group, they did not show any response, any increase in muscle protein synthesis, in the buildup of new muscle tissue, while the other 2 groups do. Collagen is a very interesting protein source because it is an animal-based protein source, but it's very low in quality. Actually, the quality is 0. That comes because of the total lack of tryptophan. So this one does not contain any tryptophan. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid. It's not present in collagen. And also the proteins that are present in collagen are very unbalanced if you compare them to our muscle tissue, for instance. So it clearly underscores my idea that if you have incomplete meals, if you have incomplete proteins, you will fail in increasing this muscle protein synthesis. Another thing that's interesting from this study is that the plant protein P is actually able to stimulate muscle protein synthesis in a similar fashion as whey. And whey is considered one of the best quality protein. 50 grams a day is quite a bit, 50 grams extra protein. So I think that was enough to achieve a good response in muscle protein synthesis after giving pea protein, which is not really the best balance. The pea was from an isolate, so that really improves the digestibility of pea, which is normally not that good. But if you make it an isolate, it's just as good as whey. So that's great, and that's a reason why they achieved a very nice response on the plant protein. So it is possible. So good to see. We usually don't eat single sources. We don't have so many protein supplements. We eat meals. And right now, what was missing is a quality score of a meal protein quality. So we do have scores, DIAs, PDKs for one single source, but because they are only focusing on one single source, it's not so interesting. And also they miss out on including protein quantity. Because if you eat a lot of lower quality protein, you're still fine. You see it from the pea study. If you eat a very little amount, say 1 gram of whey protein, it's great quality, but it doesn't do a lot in your body. So you always need to see it through the lens of protein quantity as well. So we developed a new score, meal protein quality score, which is based on a requirement of essential amino acids that you should achieve every meal. That is based on 0.3 grams per kilogram body weight, which is sufficient to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. To optimally stimulate protein synthesis, you can go higher, you can go to 0.4, but there's also recent data that's showing that you can even have go up to 100 grams of protein in one meal. So the whole concept of optimizing protein synthesis, muscle protein synthesis, is a little bit shaky. We multiplied that quantity target by the reference pattern set by the FAO or the WHO, and then we have essential amino acid requirements for every meal after we do this. Then on the intake side, we will adjust the intake for digestibility, then sum up all the essential amino acids within one meal, and then we can find the essential amino acid from the meal that has the lowest percentage intake relative to your requirement, and that will determine your meal protein quality score. If you want to know more about it, you can follow this link. It's a preprint. The paper is under review right now, but the preprint is already out if you want to know more about the score or if you want to apply it in your own research. We applied this meal protein quality score to our our simulation diets. Remember, I showed the protein quantity before. Now we look at protein quality for just only the lunch for this presentation. So of course we only look at the meal for this meal protein quality score, because in the meal we want to have these combinations of protein sources in place. The original diet shows a nice distribution with a great bulb around 100. 100 means that from all the essential amino acids you reach the requirement. So 100 is your target. 80 means that one of the essential amino acids only meets 80% of the requirement. So that was the median score. It was most often lysine that was causing this score lower than 100. And then we see if we move up to all the plant-based scenarios that are not vegan, the median only shifts a little bit to the left, so 78 or 76. So still also the quality stays quite good if we eat more plant-based but not vegan. Again, moving to vegan, it totally changes the appearance of this distribution. You see that the median is almost half of your original diet. It really affects the quality. Most often lysine followed by methionine are limiting and are only meeting a median of 43% of your lysine requirement. So those meals are really unbalanced and of low quality. We can also apply this score on hospital meals, because these hospitals, they want to have more plant-based meals on their menu. And we use this tool already in practice to guide them to have good plant-based meals. This is a vegetarian broccoli gratin from a hospital in Copenhagen that we collaborate with. And this is the alpha tool that you see here. So the alpha tool is used to calculate the protein quality of recipes. You see that we have all the ingredients there. So let's look at broccoli. We have 100 grams of broccoli. It has a certain digestibility for which we adjust. In the case of broccoli, it's 0.7 on the top of my head. We adjust all these amino acids a little bit down for the digestibility, because you will simply not extract them from your broccoli. We do that for all the ingredients. We sum them up. So here in the total recipe line, you see the sum of all the essential amino acids adjusted for digestibility in this meal. We divide it by the number of portions, which is 1, so it's the same number in this case. We compare that to the meal requirement. So here you see the meal requirement. That's the amount of essential amino acids that you want to have in this hospital patient meal to be of good protein quality and quantity. And then you see in this case, lysine is only meeting 75% of the requirement. So it's not really a bad meal. It's quite okay. Your requirement is 1050. You reached 785, so that's 75%. That will be your meal. That will be your meal protein quality score. Your limiting essential amino acids, lysine. They also had a same dish, but with an egg added to it. And if you have this egg, you see that it immediately increases a lot of the essential amino acids in this meal, making everything well above this requirement. So we can use this tool to change the meals, so change the proportion of each ingredient to achieve higher scores, or we add another plant-based protein source to increase the proteins in the meal and to achieve 100. You can also use it the other way around. So if meals are scoring, like in this case 130, you can say like, okay, we can also maybe lower the amount of protein a little bit, and especially in meat meals, we sometimes see meal protein quality scores of 300, for instance. Then you know you are over catering on your proteins. You could lower it down for sustainability reasons. So you can use it bidirectionally, but it really will bridge the current gap between sustainability and health. As an example of a fully vegan diet to show that it's possible, here's a fully vegan diet with rice, broccoli, and a vegan meat alternative, vegan chicken fillet, meeting all the essential amino acid requirements. So it is possible on a vegan diet. From experience, I can tell you it's a little bit of puzzling all the time. It's quite difficult to get vegan diets to 100, but it is possible. So to round off, let's answer some questions. Are plant-based diets healthy for older adults? Yes, they are, but we should be careful with this protein quality. And to deal with that, we can add a small amount of animal proteins. So if we have a flexitarian diet or a vegetarian diet, we're still fine. If we have a vegan meal, but we would add a little bit of meat, that's already enough to bring the score to 100. Really, a few grams is already enough. Well, 10, 20 grams, something like that. Yes, it is also possible with good plant-based protein sources. Really, soy protein is great protein source, well digestible, good amino acid balance. You will need a little bit more than the 0.3 if you go to soy. So 0.4 grams per kilogram per meal, not per day, per meal would be good. And by using this alpha tool to calculate really your meals, you can make sure that you have meals that are vegan or very plant rich and still have a good protein quality and quantity. So my last slide, the take home message is high quality protein is important for maintaining muscle mass. Eating more plant-based is possible, but have a plan for protein quality. And to help that, MPQS and Alpha Tool are useful tools for a sensible protein transition. That was it. I'm very curious to hear all your questions. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. And if you want to reach out to me, the opening slides contains my contact details. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Very interesting presentation. Really showcasing, yes, absolute tick for the environment. That we can lower the impact, and we might also lower the impact on our health shifting to plant-based diet. Let me start first with an epidemiological study. You showed lots of systematic reviews with meta-analysis. Isn't always the problem that we are comparing apples with bananas in these kind of studies? Like individuals who are already on vegan diet, they might have different physical activity habits. They might have a lower weight. There are so many risk factors which are different. Do you really think that we should educate individuals based on these kind of data, or should we not do huge randomized control trials to really go to see if there is a mortality decrease?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Like I always tell my students this as well, because they often overlook this extreme confounding that's taking place with vegan diets. Because really, you have to be very mindful of health and environment and everything. If you eat vegans, they are more active, they're more highly educated. It's almost possible to really correct for. So yes, you're very right in that sense. And yes, we need causal evidence. We need the randomized controlled trials. I think with our VOLT trial that I presented, the 3-month trial, we already do a good first step to really see if we can find it in a randomized controlled trial fashion. It's only 3 months, so we cannot really estimate mortality. But of course, I am trying to get extra funding to measure biological aging in this population. So to see if maybe vegan diets will rejuvenate a little bit. I don't know. Could be.
Yeah, let's talk afterwards. But
Yeah,
the fracture risk, which is from epidemiological studies a little bit higher, of 1.5 times higher in vegans at older age, might that be due to the weight? Because very often out of epidemiological studies too, that these individuals have a lower weight compared to others, and we know at older age you need the weight to actually to have a little bit higher bone mineral density in the end. And they might also be a little bit more active and more risky. So do you have any idea out of the studies where these fractures are coming from and these situational, etc.?
I think they found it's not only in older people but also in younger people. So that's the first thing. Because in older people, indeed, a little bit of cushioning is helpful to to prevent fractures. But also, indeed, a more active lifestyle could also lead to more fractures. Even though I think if your bone mineral density is good, you should be able to catch some falls, especially for the younger people. So that the fact that they found it also in younger people says that there might be something. And I think combined with the observations we see with the lower bone mineral density, we it's not only the risk of falling and stuff like that. It's really something in the bones, which are quite. People often forget that bones are quite similar to muscles in terms of protein synthesis. So they also need this continuous stimulation. They also need this continuous mechanical load and stuff. They will also really quickly adapt to the environment. So they also need a good protein consumption every day. So I think it could be really true that a poor protein diet leads to lower bone mineral density and therefore increased fracture risk. But of course, there are again a lot of confounders playing a role there as well. Yeah.
We talked about protein supplementation. On the other hand side, there's much more needed to have healthy food intake. So how do you combine your approach with other approaches to also give lots of vitamins and minerals to diets?
Yes, I'm well aware that I'm quite tunnel visioned on protein, and there's a lot more going around. I already said something about vitamins like B12, omega-3 fatty acids. That's not a vitamin, but also a small compound. These can become problematic as well if we go to a more vegan diet. So you basically, if you go to eat more plant-based, everything is messed up. Some of the fibers, the phytochemicals are very much higher in your diet, which is great. The other side are nutrients that can become problematic, and it's actually something we are going to focus more on right now. So also with these modeling things, what will happen to your micronutrients when does it become problematic, and where is opportunity for supplementation and stuff like that.
Yeah, great. We haven't touched on the microbiome and genetic components and all other stuff, but I see so many questions from the audience now coming in. Teresa, can you take over and tell us what the questions from the audience are?
Okay, thank you, Andrea, for introduction. Nice to meet you, Dr. Grootswagers. Thank you for the insightful talk. Yeah, we have a lot of questions from the audience. So let's just dive into those first. First of all, can you highlight some of the best dietary source of protein for older adults? For those who lack amino acids, will protein powder simpler?
Thank you, Teresa, for your questions. So the first question is good protein sources for older adults. Well, most of the animal sources are quite good, except for collagen, and the plant sources which are good. Soy, as I said, is a terrific protein. It's really good. It's great, and yeah, other proteins like pea isolate could work as well, but yeah, usually I would say soy is quite a good protein, both from a digestibility point of view as an amino acid point of view. Then your second question relates to a question I think from Andrea earlier, like can we just supplement if you're on a vegan diet? Yeah, that's one of the solutions. One would be to take protein shakes, to use a soy or a pea isolate shake. It's possible. Usually people like to go to a vegan diet from a more sustainability view. If you go to isolates, it might be related to some food waste. So that's sometimes yeah, conflicting values. But there are different reasons, of course, that people eat a vegan diet, and in some cases, supplementation could very well work. Yeah.
Thank you. So, how is the absorption rate when the elderly switch from normal diet to vegan diet or plant protein diet?
So the absorption, yeah, that's a great topic because a lot of people think that older adults have a lower protein absorption than younger people. However, we don't have really empirical data supporting this yet. So we are actually studying this also in Wageningen in my group. So we will have more data on that. There's suspicion that in older adults it's lower. We don't know. We also don't know if it becomes better over time. So, for instance, if we would study elderly from India who have eaten vegan or vegetarian their whole life, would they have a better protein uptake than people in Western countries who are just making the switch at a later age? There's so many questions to answer there.
Okay. Did all vegans take vitamin B12 supplements? Could B12 be a potential factor that complicates the result?
I think B12 is really on the radar of vegans way more than protein quality is. So I think they do indeed supplement that, majority of them. Also, it's nowadays with all the plant milks and the plant meat alternatives, at least in the Netherlands, they're all fortified with B12. I guess that's an international trend we see. So that's becoming less and less of a problem. I think B12 is not my main problematic issue. It's more protein quality and omega-3 fatty acids. I think that one might also be ignored too often.
What do you think about how do protein requirements change as individuals age?
Wow, these questions are really good. As we see in the official documents, so FAO, WHO, they don't change. That's at least what they say. They have a protein requirement for babies, for children, and for everyone 3 years and older. Everyone. So if you're 3 years old or 100 years old, it's the same. That's probably not true. There are indications that older people would benefit from a little bit more leucine. So that could be already one of the requirements that we need to push up a little bit. But it would be very interesting to achieve amino acids requirements aimed at older people, and to see if they do change from growing children. I would think so, but right now we don't know it yet. So we're still working with the same requirement as a 4-year-old.
Thank you. Next question. Is there an alpha tool for different type of patients?
Yes. So in Alpha tool, you can select your patient. You can also select athlete, for instance. For athletes, we have a slightly higher protein goal, also because it's achievable that they eat a bit more. What do we have? We have nursing home residents, we have hospital patients, we have healthy, active older adult, and you can also click on custom and give a protein target yourself. So if you say like, hey, for my target population, I want 0.5 grams per kilogram per day per meal, you can do that. So it's very flexible in that sense.
Okay. How crucial is the amino acid profile of a protein source for muscle health in older adults?
I hope that after my presentation, you you all agree that it's quite crucial. So especially like if you eat now and then a vegan meal, it's fine. You have enough essential amino acids circulating around in your blood to make up for one lacking essential amino acid. What we see is people eat the same meals every day. They have the same breakfast every day. It's always lysine deficient. It will become problematic, and it will in my view, it will lead to lower muscle mass. That's still my intuition. That still need to be backed up by empirical data. So I have to be careful there. We don't really know the dose response effects there. So we're very busy with collecting this empirical data. Stay tuned. But if I have to bet now, it's very important.
Okay. How do genetic and epigenetic factors influence the effectiveness of nutritional and lifestyle interventions for aging?
Very difficult question. In general, or related to plant-based? Yeah. So, well, let's stick to my topic. Maybe genetics and epigenetics influence your digestibility. As I said, let's try this out. Let's include older Indians who have people from India who have eaten a vegan, vegetarian diet their whole life, and see if they have maybe upregulated gene expression for certain enzymes that are needed in the protein digestion pathway. That could be very well be possible that you have in such a way an adaptation mechanism going around via your gene expression, via your epigenetics. Genetically, I don't know. It's not like, and of course enzymes are also related to genes. Could be that there's something there, but there's no indication about it that I'm aware of.
Okay, a plant-based diet contains lower levels of methionine. Given that methionine restriction has been shown to extend lifespan, wouldn't this be a benefit of following a plant-based diet?
Yeah, wonderful question. So methionine restriction is, of course, super interesting as an anti-aging strategy. Vegan diets are low on methionine. Are they low enough? I'm still in doubt. So you have your methionine quite low to achieve all these beneficial effects. Probably it's still a bit higher than that in a vegan diet, but it's definitely much lower than in an omnivorous diet. So therefore, that's also the reason why I'm so interested in looking at aging markers in our vegan trial that we have, and then we can even see, because every participant there will create their own vegan diet. So some will be lower on methionine than others. So we also have some variation there, which we could relate to changes in biological age, for instance. So if then we can maybe, if we're very lucky, see that already a mild methionine restriction could rejuvenate a little bit. It would be very, very, very cool to see, and also make my life a little bit more difficult, because then do you want more methionine for a protein quality point of view, or do you want low methionine for a longevity point of view? But I think this is a recurring discussion in longevity research around protein anyway. So very, very nice question, really great.
Thank you so much, Paul. What a wonderful talk, really hearing that we can optimize the impact of the environment we are living in, and also maybe our health. Wonderful. You might still have lots of questions, so please put them into the chat box. But also, we are very, very interested about your comments and the remarks, the suggestions, how the Healthy Longevity webinar is going. So please use the chat box for that. The 1st of August this year, 2024, we will have Professor Daniel Stickler with us. And we don't have a topic yet, so please stay tuned. Our final video for today is, I would say, summarized, let's be happy. Take care.
What in your life has brought you the most joy?
My parents. Doing stuff that I haven't did in a long time really good. Seeing my friend Amelia. Having a sister. Video games. My family and my friends. My family. My brother and my dog.
Doing plays and shows and stuff. I love acting.
My family. My career.
My family.
Music.
Moving to New York.
I think doing creative projects with people I love.
I would say any time that I get to spend with my 2 siblings and my parents would be the most joyful times that I have.
I finally got settled and unpacked my suitcase. That sounds like a very small thing, but growing up I moved 15 times. Then for uni I moved another 6. For work I pack things a lot and unpack, so it was really nice to feel like I finally had my own home.
My family has brought me a lot of joy. A year ago I got a gig for one of my favorite director.
My friends and my family, for sure.
Moving to New York City.
Entertaining other people.
Music.
My music and what I want to say in my music.
Again, going back to my doggy, Alfie. Just look at him. I just can't stop smiling. Just every time I see him. Performing on stage.
Writing and my 2 cats.
Dance.
Reading.
Honestly, music.
The ability to let loose of what society wants from me and just live for myself and pursue whatever I want to do.
I think my family has brought me the most joy in my life.
My daughter, hands down.
I say my family.
Being consistent.
Just the simple things in life, being healthy, progressing my career.
Both my children.
Music and sharing music with people.
Singing.
Being with friends, family, yeah.
My children, definitely.
Having a son.
The best decision that I've made in the last 20 years is my acquisition of 2 French bulldogs.
Collaborating with other artists.
Watching my children sort of create their own paths.
My family, my children.
My kids, my 2 daughters.
My friends and family.
My 3 children.
My cats.
My family and my friends.
My children.
Having 3 children.
Maybe connecting with my parents, and having a conversation and all of a sudden feeling like we understand each other.
The birth of my son.
The thing that has brought me the most joy are my children.
Singing.
My family. There are so many things, but I think I'd have to say being a mother.
I mean, apart from my son, pursuing the arts, creativity always brings me joy.
Seeing somebody get sober.
Having the opportunity to run a major department.
My children have brought me the most joy, and now my grandchildren.
Contact with nature.
Family.
Seeing my son and daughter achieve.
My family.
The most joy has come to me through doing the work that I love.
My grandchildren.
Great family.
The current relationship that I have.
I'm feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down.